Right here.
Come a little closer and lend me your ears. Don't worry, you keep yours while I keep mine.
In each episode, we'll dig into the major stories, uncover the truth, and retrieve gems from Yada's blog.
We'll discuss what's right, bark about what's wrong, wag our tails at the thrill of discovery, and take you on adventures through the exciting world we live in today.
So, fasten your curiosity leash and get ready.
Right then, coming to you with another episode of the Yada's Vlog on a Blog. Tomorrow's news, disseminated today. Let's dive in.
All right, diving right in. We're here with Kevin, vlog on the vlog on the daily. Here we are going to be talking about blog presentations from social media and giving a little narrative on them and bringing them into a prophetic sense when we can. It is interesting here, Kevin, and good morning to you.
Good morning.
To see how the world recognizes and plays Trump, and yet somehow Americans, particularly MAGA, are incapable of recognizing how just pathetic POTUS is. All you can do with this man, you can't reason with him, and no one wants to. You can't trust him. You can't negotiate with him. All you can do if you want him to play along with what you're trying to achieve is flatter him. He does really well if you have a big contingency sing songs to him at the airport.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
he is
likes
really
parades.
good if you have a big parade in his honor. You're good if you have handshakes and say, "Oh, you're so handsome, you're so wonderful, you're my good friend, Donald." He's really good if you do that. You just are never going to negotiate successfully with him. You're never going to have a conversation where he's going to remember 5 words ago what he said, much less what you said. So really, all you can do is flatter him. And that's as I guess we should expect, because the greatest ego of all time is Satan.
Yeah.
And he is the corporeal manifestation of Satan. So it's really not cute. He is the person that Christians have long sought to identify as the Antichrist. There was no Christ, so it's pretty hard to have an Antichrist, but Christians are no wiser for that. But he's the devil incarnate.
Yeah, it was so surprising to be when we talked about on yesterday's episode, for him to be so insignificant to China, other than a consumer, right? We're a customer, and so we get the respect and the treatment that any customer that would walk into a China store, would get, right? Thank you very much for your patronage, and but for him to be the United States to be so insignificant to China, for them to really doll up the way they did with and let me tell you, I saw most of it, and it wasn't a Chinese May Day parade. It wasn't a Chinese, it was just a little, have the children come out, wave some flags, some flowers, you're great, we'll walk through the roses, and it was just,
well,
wow,
he is bored to tears, saying, "Good God,
Yes.
Can I get this stinky piece of S out of my country and get on to some business?" And that was the whole thing. I mean, nothing was accomplished. That's
Right.
hard to do, because normally you have smart people that talk to smart people, one country to another, and you already write everything that you're going to accomplish before the leading idiots ever meet. And it's
Right.
and it's just you have a press conference and said, "Yeah, we agreed to this, we agreed to that, we agreed to this, we've signed, we have a signing ceremony." Well, all of that was negotiated before they ever arrive. And in this case, it's nothing. I mean, this was a nothing burger. And it was, but it was worse than a nothing burger, because it began with Z telling Trump, "Listen, pal, you need to get out of the way. You don't change your approach to Taiwan, which is ours and which we're going to take and which you can do nothing about. You don't change your attitude towards this, you're going to be eaten up alive. It'll be the end of you." Just as bold, as threatening, as demanding as words allowed, Z told Trump, get a big slice of reality here, pal, because you're just completely wrong on Taiwan, and you can't save it. Now, I've been saying this for a long time that I genuinely love Taiwan. I've spent, months there at a time, year after year, did deal after deal with the Taiwanese. Spectacular people, hardworking, honorable. Love them. I've spent a lot of time in China too. I have no issue with the mainland Chinese. But the fact of the matter is that even though I prefer, by a long margin, the Taiwanese government to the communist Chinese government, the fact is that the numbers dictate reality in this case. And there is literally nothing that can be done to save Taiwan from China. The United States has a 0% chance of even delaying it more than a day or two if they were to try. And if they were to try, going to lose all manner of warships and airplanes and everything else, and make everything worse for everyone, including Taiwan.
Yeah, it's just a loss of life with nothing gained. China still takes Taiwan. I mean, take the aircraft carriers out of it, take the vehicles out of it. I mean, it's just a massive loss of life for nothing because China still takes it.
Yes, and really and listen, again, I despise collectivization in government, and so and I have a great affinity for Taiwan. I just realized there is nothing that the U.S. military and the Japanese military and the Australian military and the EU military can do, even if they wanted to, and most don't, to protect Taiwan. It is impossible under the circumstances, absolutely impossible. So actually the best thing for Taiwan is to realize that they're in a situation where they cannot defend themselves from China. And rather than sacrificing millions of lives and destroying their country, they'd be far better off working out a deal that's similar to Hong Kong. And I understand that Hong Kong went from being free to under Chinese dictatorship. And there is no freedom of speech, very little freedoms, other than the Chinese Communist Party have learned that communism does not work economically, and they will allow free enterprise, which means, there is one crown jewel in Taiwan. And I don't even think China would give two hoots about Taiwan if it wasn't for the Taiwan Semiconductor Company. And if it was not for them, I think that Taiwan could go on and be independent, but they would lose their crown jewel. And that's why China wants it. That's why they will take it. And the Taiwanese would be better off negotiating a deal, which is essentially a surrender. I wish it weren't true, but that's reality.
Yeah, I hope those translators between Xi and Trump were getting paid well, man, because I would not want that job. They had to have. There's no way they were translating exactly what was said. First of all, Xi probably speaks English, okay, so he knows what Trump's saying. But the translators, they are supposed to say word for word, as close as they possibly can, exactly what's said and not embellish. But I know that those translators were just puckered the whole time. Just, how do you translate what Donald Trump is saying?
Right. Or worse, how do you tell the president of the United States, shut up, sit down. You have no say here. You're not going to tell us what to do. We're not best friends. And the fact is that we're going to start on Taiwan, and then we're going to tell you that on Iran, we're enemies. We will not come to your aid on Taiwan. That was your stupid blunder. We're not going to come to your aid on the Ukraine or against Russia or anything else you're doing. In fact, there was a statement during this that Trump has tried desperately to spin, where Z actually told Trump to his face that America is a declining empire and that China is the rising empire. And when that was stated and everyone heard it, Trump was desperate to say what he was saying, and so eloquently, that America was a declining empire under Biden. But I, the glorious Trump, have restored America to supremacy and greatness. No, that's not what he was saying, Donald.
Yeah, right. Trump likes to say, "Oh, we're the hottest ticket now. Everybody wants to do business. We're the hottest ticket now."
No, we're not.
No.
No. Well, they are not. I have tried. I've tried to tell Israel, starting the moment of watching the attack, knowing what they were going to do, and that they would blame Hamas for October 7th, not Islam. And I knew the moment they blamed Hamas rather than Islam, they would have no chance of success. And I knew they would invade Gaza to try to obliterate Hamas, not recognizing that because the problem is Islam, there's a 0% chance that they would prevail. And I knew that they did not understand that when you use bullets and bombs to attack a religious foe, that you make more of them, not less of them. And so after Israel has squandered thousands of its own soldiers and its reputation in the world, and has demolished Gaza, turning the entire world against Israel, causing Israel to be accused of genocide and all manner of war crimes. After having been played for fools in doing this thing, Hamas still is. Haven't changed.
Not just is, the grown. I mean, yeah,
grown.
That's
emboldened, armed, and going nowhere. Yeah. So now what? Is Israel going to feed this monster that is trying to kill it forevermore? I mean, what now? What you did failed, blew up in your face. It destroyed Israel and did nothing to harm Hamas. Now, what Israel just didn't understand, and yet we proclaimed it as boldly as words allow, that you were taunted into this move. The entire purpose of October 7th was to piss you off. And they knew if they pissed you off, you'd go in and you'd destroy Gaza. And if you did that, then you'd be isolated in the world, that a Palestinian state would be inevitable, and that other countries would start selling you weapons. They'd stop doing business with you, and isolated from the rest of the world, surrounded by 2 billion Muslims, you were chump change. It was over. You're indefensible. That was the purpose of that war, and Israel played the fool.
Yeah. I wonder where the Sinai is going to play into this. I just have a feeling that at some point that's going to come back to bite Israel as well, giving up the Sinai for this idea of peace and thinking that was a good idea, and then turning around and thinking that, well, it worked with the Muslim Brotherhood, it worked with Egypt, so we're going to sit down and do a two-state solution, for Gaza. I don't think Gaza is the big player in a two-state solution. It puts their back to the wall. They don't have the ocean there, right? But Judea and Samaria is the scary one. When because that is a part of it. When Judea and Samaria become part of
narrows Israel at less than 5 miles wide at its waist, where 70% of the Israeli population lives, and they have to have a conduit between Gaza and Judea and Samaria that will go through that area, perhaps around Bethlehem. It makes Israel indefensible, tears the country apart, and creates this false sense of security where they said, oh, we have a deal that they won't be armed, they won't attack us, not recognizing they're dealing with Muslims, And
They're
that the
Muslim.
Quran's 9th surah says that a deal, any negotiation, any treaty between a Muslim and non-Muslim is not binding on the Muslim. And it's not ambiguous, and it's proven because of Hudaybiyah. It was based on Hudaybiyah. Hudaybiyah is a known fact in Islam. And it's just the taking the time to do as I did in goddamn religion. You reorder the Quran in the context of Muhammad's life, using the historic Tariq by Tabari and the biographical Sirah of Ishaq. And when you do that, you can rearrange the Quran chronologically. You can set it into the context of Muhammad's life, and you can know why the 9th surah, which was the second to last revealed chronologically, opens by saying that a treaty between a Muslim and non-Muslim is not binding on the Muslim. It was to exonerate Muhammad for lying in the Treaty of Hudaybiyah when he had insufficient forces, and he was afraid that he would be a laughing stock around the Kaaba, as he had been when he came up with the satanic verses and the wild winged ass ride to Jerusalem, and was laughed out of town. And so he knew that if he couldn't wipe them out, they would laugh him out. And so he said, okay, I'm not Allah's messenger, and we won't attack our kin and terrorize them or kidnap them or murder them or enslave them for 10 years. You got my word on it. I'm illiterate, but nevertheless, I'll sign my name right here. Muhammad, not a prophet, not the messenger. He even renounced all of it, signed his name on it. And the following year, he came down with more men and arms and promptly beat the tar out of them. And so to exonerate a lying prophet or a non-prophet, the ungod said, hey, treaty between Muslims and non-Muslims is not binding on the Muslim. So it's a waste of time to negotiate a deal. They won't honor it. There you go.
And that was his family. He did that to with the Koresh. Was that what they were called? He did that to his family. So
Correct.
even
He did it to his family.
even between Muslims, a Muslim contract is no good. Yeah,
that is correct. Yeah, that he did it to his family. The criminal enterprise that started Islam was the Battle of Badr. It wasn't a battle; it was just a terrorist raid. But it was against his own family. Mm-hmm. First people he kidnapped, the first persons he murdered, the first that he robbed were his own family. And then when he overhunted his own family, he went to Arabs in general, and when he overhunted them, he went to Jews and robbed and plundered Jews, perpetrating genocide and apartheid against the Jewish population of Arabia. His history is not a secret. I understand on social media they don't want you to talk about it because truth is not popular there. But nevertheless, Muhammad was a thug. Allah was not a god. Muhammad was not a prophet. The Quran is the worst book ever written. And Islam is a death cult. So, you want to deal with it? You want to bring it into your country? You want to pretend like you can survive alongside Ebola? Have at it. Witness the consequence. How did the negotiations in the Oslo Accords go for you? How well did the negotiations that when you gave up Gaza go for you?
Yeah.
Why would you expect anything different?
They walk out of Gaza, they build all this infrastructure, and Hamas is tearing up the water pipes to their people. Okay, water in the desert. Mm-hmm. They're tearing the water pipes up to build rockets to go kill Yehud.
Yes, that's it. That's it. Those are the people you're dealing with. And the Europeans and the Americans and everybody wants to give these thugs enormous amounts of money. And you've got the Marxist morons in today's universities all rallying around them. Palestine will be free. What? Free of what? The Muslim thugs that ripped up their own water pipes to create rockets to kill Jews? Is that who you wanted to be free from? No, of course not. They wanted to be free from the Jews who are feeding them.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
All right. So
Captain Uranium.
Yeah, Captain Uranium here. America is like Netanyahu now. They are desperate to create some sense of victory out of defeat in Iran. Of course, in that first war, it was 10 years into Netanyahu screaming, Iran's going to have a bomb. Iran's going to, they're only a week away, 2 weeks away, a month away, 6 months away, days away. They may already have one. Iran's a bomb. The sky is falling. It was all a lie. Now, were they enriching the uranium to build a bomb? Absolutely. But they had the uranium at sufficient enrichment to have a bomb within 2 weeks for 10 years. Did they finish it? No.
Right.
Why? Because their leader had a fatwa, a religious decree against building an atomic weapon. Why? Because in Islam, you got to understand the mentality of Islam. Well, in Islam, it's really, really good to go off and kill. And Allah just loves a good kill. In fact, there are surahs in the Quran that talk about slaughter, a really good slaughter. And it even, there's like in the 8th surah, it talks about how a Muslim can't abduct captives and slaves and can't go out and rape women and steal plunder until they've made a great slaughter in the land.
Right.
Right. So this is the Islamic way. But it is also the Islamic way that if you have the capacity, you have the means, you must use it to obliterate all non-Muslims. And so if he had a bomb, he cannot use the bomb defensively. There is no defensive tactic in the Quran. Literally, no defensive tactic in the Quran. The Quran says a Muslim that retreats ceases to be a Muslim, and Allah is going to torture that Muslim in hell. It's kind of like the Russians fighting the Second World War. You might as well go charge the Germans with a bayonet without bullets in it, because there were bullets in the Russian guns, and they'd shoot you if you tried to retreat. That's the nature of Islam. So he can't build a bomb because he'd have to use the bomb. And you use the bomb and you cease to exist. The world won't tolerate that. So he put himself in he didn't finish the bomb. What he did is take it all the way up to being, to completing without completing it, so that they could if they had to, but they didn't. And they didn't for 10 years. So when Israel convinced America, or they collectively decided, let's go bomb Iran, it was stupid, because all you were doing is increasing the likelihood of them finishing their bomb by attacking them that way. And so it was really
the one
foolish.
guy that had the fatwa, let's kill him. So
that was the second time where they were going to get regime change with total decapitation. And so the guy that wrote the fatwa on saying no bomb, they killed him, and they maimed his son, who is now the chief potentate, who is a former member of the Iranian Guard, who had a different point of view. He said, we need to have a bomb to prevent this kind of stuff. And so now you have a certainty that they're going to have a bomb. Now, will they make a deal to give up some of their enriched uranium? Absolutely. Because why? They already have a bomb. So it's an entirely foolish thing that we have done. And then, in that last war, they went off and bragged, oh, we totally obliterated it. It was obvious they didn't even scratch beneath the surface. And everybody knew they hadn't scratched beneath the surface. But MAGAs are so stupid, and the media is so gullible, that he just kept on screaming that we obliterated it. And in Trump speak, if you lie really boldly a bunch of times, you are convinced that you're going to convince others that what you did. And obviously he lied, because he went back and said, well, we got to stop Iran from having a bomb, when you told us you've already stopped Iran from having a bomb. Oh, yeah. Good grief. And by the way, you didn't need to stop Iran from having a bomb, because guess what? They didn't have a bomb. So what's your justification? They've gone 10 years where they had the material to build a bomb and chose not to. And now you're saying that you're the one that's going to keep them from having what they hadn't done when they could have?
Right. As things stand now, Iran has, and they have said so publicly several times, they have nothing to negotiate with the United States.
Nothing. What would you? Why would you negotiate? The last two times they were negotiating with the United States went and bombed them while they were negotiating. So why would you ever trust that piece of crap?
Well, and even militarily or economically, however you want to put it, whatever they're talking about Iran running out of gas or bad economically, at the end of the day, um, there's no fighting actively going on right now, and the Strait of Hormuz is still controlled by Iran. So absolutely nothing changes for Iran, right? I mean,
Correct.
and
if
all the
America
United States is
attacks
doing is
again, right? If America attacks again, then all of the Gulf states on the other side of the Persian Gulf are gone.
they're free
They're
bait. Yeah,
destroyed.
mhm.
Yeah, they're going to destroy their petroleum refineries. They're going to in distribution facilities, and they're going to bomb their water desalination facilities, their electricity generation facilities, and all the what's left of the American bases. You know, it was released just a couple of days ago that that the U.S. intelligence assessment. I hate to say intelligence and U.S. in the same sentence.
That's an
Was
oxymoron,
wrong,
right?
and that Iran still has some 70 to 80% of its missiles and most of its launchers, and therefore more violence against Iran is going to destroy the U.S. bases, and all of the Gulf region around it, and the world's economy. So if you go back to war, you blow up the world, you blow up your own country, you blow up your economy, you blow up your navy. So that's not a very good choice. You continue to send troops there. You go ahead and deploy those troops. Okay, well, great. You capture an island. Maybe if you can get the vessels through the Iranian gauntlet, that maybe you could go capture an island. Then what are you going to do? How are you going to supply it?
Right.
What is the purpose of being there? What are you going to gain?
Yeah.
I know what you're going to lose, but what are you going to gain? Nothing. It's a disaster. And so, Putin, who has his own challenges at the moment, but, and I want to talk a bit about that if we can here, but Putin says, they have every right to enrich uranium. Every right. You have no right to say they can't. You have a nuclear capability in America. Israel has a nuclear capability. You're complete hypocrites. You're saying that it's okay if we go out and take yours? I mean, if you're saying you can take theirs, why can't they have yours? So no, you can't do that. That's stupid. Now, Putin is in a pickle at the moment, and I'm going to announce something here that I think is tragic for the world. Putin has been blamed for a war that he did not start, that the U.S. absolutely unequivocally began all the way back at the first strikes by the U.S. in this war to use the Ukraine as a weapon against Russia go all the way back to 1950. But they were taken to the forefront by the idiot George W. Bush when he pronounced they would be part of NATO. And that would be like Russia putting nuclear bombs in Cuba again. And you're going to say the United States is not going to stand by it, or putting them in Canada and Mexico.
Right.
No, you're not. You're going to do that. That's war. And then we overturned not one but two elected governments in Ukraine, and then we started arming the Ukraine. And the first armaments of the Ukraine weren't to go kill Russians inside the Russian Federation. They were to go kill the ethnic Russians in the Donbass region who were disgusted that the U.S. CIA overturned the government that they had elected in Kiev. And they were there amassed with U.S. and European equipped and trained militia, specifically to go and kill Donbass ethnic Russians in the eastern part of the Ukraine.
Literal
and that's what,
Nazis.
Literal Nazis. And that's what Russia went in to stop. And nobody wants to hear it. And the lies are so shrill, it makes me want to puke. And so I don't really like Putin. I've been to Russia. I actually like Russia. I think it's a beautiful country. I find most people are pretty accommodating. I don't think they differ a whole lot around the world. I mean, there's some cultures I don't really like at all. I don't like the French culture. I don't like the British culture. There are cultures I really don't like. But Russia's a beautiful country. People are lovely there. we've just turned them into a boogeyman because the military-industrial complex requires boogeymen. Otherwise, they don't make any money. And politicians can't stay in power unless they say, we're protecting you from that boogeyman. Well, probably the most sane, best informed, most rational politician in the world is that guy right there, Vladimir Putin. But Vladimir Putin's goal in Ukraine was not to defeat Ukraine. That wasn't his goal. Never been his goal. It's not a war against Ukraine, and he doesn't want to occupy Ukraine. He knows the Ukrainians better than anybody else, and he says, I don't want any part of them. I want to protect the ethnic Russians and the places where the majority of the people are ethnic Russian. I'm going to protect them. That is my sovereign duty. But I don't want the rest of them. Western Ukraine, good God, you can have it in Europe. They are nothing but thugs. They'll take you down. They are parasites. I want nothing to do with it. He doesn't want Kiev. He just wants to stop the advance of NATO and doesn't want to have an enemy that was at his borders poised and equipped to kill his people. And so he tried to downplay this war wherever he could. And he kept on warning Europe not to supply the Ukrainians with targeting information of targets inside of Russia and not to supply them with European weapon systems. He says, because if you do, eventually I'm going to have to attack you.
Right.
And they have. And they've given, the one attack was against the strategic bomber fleet of Russia. I mean, there's no violation you could do that's more serious than that. The Russians could have and probably should have retaliated with a nuclear strike against Europe for having done that. But now the number one missile technology site of Russia has been bombed with one of the UK's guided missiles using German targeting data. Germany, France, and the UK have announced that they're preparing for war against Russia in 2029 and 2030. They've declared war. It'd be like China saying, we're declaring war against the United States. We're going to start that war in a couple of years. Right now, we think that maybe the war would be a draw. So give us a couple of years to really get our really best weapons up to snuff and everything positioned so that we can go clobber the United States. What's the United States going to say? Okay, you want to have war with us? Then we're going to start now.
Might as well. Yes, absolutely.
So they declared war. They declared war on Russia. And, I want you to understand, Germany doesn't have a military.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've spent a little over $100 billion on new weapons systems and have nothing to show for it. That country is upside down. The UK, I don't think could fill even a half of a soccer stadium with the troops at this point. And none of them, they're all a joke. No one will fight and die for the UK. Not anymore.
Right.
And they have no navy. And France is underwater. All of Europe could no more defend itself against Russia and man the moon. It's going to be like what happened in the Second World War. I'm sorry, but you're going to get clobbered. So now that Europe has declared war on Russia and that Europe is now targeting Russian economic vital resources, their refineries, their distribution facilities, and their strategic military manufacturing plants. With European weapons supplied in European factories and with guidance provided by European countries, Putin must attack Europe. He must. I mean, it's not an option anymore. I don't even think it's under consideration anymore. It's strictly, he's a very prudent man. And he knows at this point, he either attacks Europe or he's done. Not just him. He's probably the most dedicated of all heads of state to his country as opposed to himself. His country is done. You have an enemy that can make weapons that targets your infrastructure and your defensive systems, and you can't do anything to stop them. That's not something any nation can survive. That's just like saying that Canada and Mexico are going to combine to create weapons that just take out one important facility in America after another. And we do nothing to respond. You can't survive that. And that's the position that Russia is in now. And so Russia will absolutely use conventional weapons, but very sophisticated conventional weapons, to take out military industrial complexes in the UK, Germany, then France, and probably in Finland.
That was my next question: is what is the play? I mean, they literally just hit the manufacturing facilities or component facilities where they would be in Europe, because I mean, Germany doesn't have any sort of army military, so they attack Ramstein. Well, is right off the United States. I mean, they can't hit civilian targets. So we take out a nuclear power plant in the city that happens to be the industrial base for military manufacturing or whatever. So what's the play? It is literally the factories that
the factories. Yeah. And the attack has to be so devastating, so overwhelming, that the average European is scared to death. And the missiles that Russia has now are so sophisticated that a barrage of these hypersonic missiles in particular will create the same effect of a nuclear strike. That's how devastating they are. And they can't do something that is symbolic. They can't send one over and say, okay, well, then we're going to look at what our options are in retaliating. No, it has to be a strike that is devastating. Now, you need to know that Europe doesn't have any air defenses. Nothing they can do. They don't have the ability to push back with troops. They don't have the ability to push back with artillery. They don't have the ability to push back with an air force. They got nothing. And the United States it's already made it clear that if Europe does something that causes the Russians to respond in Europe, the United States is not going to retaliate against Russia. We've already stated it. We're not going to use nuclear weapons. And if you're sitting there and you're Starmer or Macron or Merz, and the Russians use conventional weapons to take out some of your largest factories, and they've done it having told you they're going to do it because you were arming the Ukraine to kill Russians in Russia and take out Russia. So they've told you they're going to do it, and they have to do it. And they have all the justification for doing it. And what are you going to do? Because you don't have a conventional military, so you cannot respond in kind. And so all you got is the nuclear response. And if you're sitting there saying he's going to say, let's nuke them. Well, first of all, none of them have Germany doesn't have their own nukes. They'd have to use American nukes, and they wouldn't be allowed. So that's why Merz is saying we're going to make our own nukes. You think Russia's going to wait around after World War II for Germany to make their own nukes?
No. Yeah.
And in the case of England or of France, either of those two idiots, both of who have about 20% popularities now, I mean, both of them are assured of being booted out of power within the next 2 years. They have no future. Do you think that they're going to find support when they say, yeah, well, let's go teach those Ruskies a lesson. Let's go nuke them. And is that, excuse me, sir, but here's the way that the Russian nuclear doctrine works. They are committed to no first strike. And when the Russians make a commitment, they honor their commitment. They're committed to no first strike. They're also committed to the moment that a ballistic missile is fired from a submarine, or there is an aircraft coming from a base that has gravity nuclear weapons, or there is a land-based missile that is capable of carrying a nuclear weapon, is fired in the direction of Russia, they aren't going to say, let's see how bad it is.
Right.
They're not going to wait. The Russian nuclear doctrine is, we will not fire first, but we will not receive first either. And they will release sufficient nuclear warheads to take out all of Europe. And Russia doesn't want to do that. Putin doesn't want to do that. Putin doesn't want to have to attack Europe, but his hand was forced. The Europeans leaders wanted the war. They have made it impossible for Putin to avoid the war. And Russia, before all this mess happened with the U.S. trying to destroy the Russian government so they could carve up Russia and steal her natural assets, or minerals and oil wealth and rare earths, which was the whole purpose of the Ukrainian proxy war. The Russians had about 400,000 troops, not particularly well equipped, not particularly well trained, and before the war, the Russian economy was in shambles because of the breakup. The Soviet Union breakup was tough, and so Vladimir Putin's credit isn't that he has protected the ethnic Russians in Ukraine, in Crimea, Donbass, and the other areas. It's that he shored up the Russian economy, made it sanction-proof before he responded. Prudent. He says, you know what? Why would I try to defend Russia and destroy Russia economically, which is what Trump's doing. Trump's not very smart. So he's destroying America economically as he lashes out militarily. Putin wouldn't do that. He shored up the Russian economy. The Russian economy is actually booming now. And it's not that they have 400 troops anymore, 400,000 troops. Very early in the war, they went to 1 million troops. Now they have 2 million. And they're all equipped. They're all armed. They're all trained. They're all properly supported, and they have spectacular generals. Now, they don't want to use them because of drone warfare, but Europe doesn't, is not very good on the drone strategy. But yeah, you're talking about 2 million versus tens of thousands, maybe. Poorly armed, poorly led, poorly trained. If you continue to push his buttons, he's not just going to bomb your factories out of existence. He's going to own you, not because he wants to. He don't want any part of you, just because he can't deal with you.
Yeah,
Europe is brain dead. I mean, it's literally brain dead. And
I think
go ahead.
I think that Ukraine is a bulwark for Russia. If Russia goes across Ukraine, I mean, Ukraine has slowly been gaining intelligence on how to fight this drone war thing, right? They weren't good at it before, but they have learned, and those are the only people that know how to do this right now. If Russia pushes through Ukraine and goes into Europe, Germany, Finland, where those people aren't ready to fight. Those people are not ready to put up any sort of that. They don't have.
I don't see
housewives
Russia
making
going,
drones.
I don't see Russia going through Ukraine to into Europe because the Ukrainians have too many drones. They would go around Ukraine to go into Europe, and they're not going to even do that until they have dealt the blow to the factories. And even in that, I think all they'd ever want to occupy is the Baltic countries. Have a clear path to the Baltic seas. The Lithuanias and the Finlands, they're in real trouble. They will be consumed, but there's no reason for Russian troops to go beyond that, and there is nothing those countries can do to stop that. And they have pushed Russia to the point where they must do it. And the only, Putin now has a 78% approval rating in Russia. Wow. Versus 38 for Donald Trump in America. It's 78%. The opposition to him are not peaceniks. They're not people that say, it's Putin's war. We don't want Putin's war. No, the opposition to him are those that say, why are you playing around here? Why don't you just destroy Ukraine?
Yeah.
So regime change, for example, in Russia, would be really bad for Europe and for the Ukraine. I just think it's appropriate that we talk about these things because, we know that the world is going to delve into chaos. This 7-year time of trouble isn't just for Israel; it's for the world. And there's more of going on in terms of wars than Israel and Gaza, Israel and Lebanon, and the U.S. and Iran. There's this proxy war in Ukraine against Russia, and the Europeans being dunderheads and forcing Russia to respond and attack Europe. Whew. What a mess.
Yeah, Yashaya, just reading in Yoel, in the Luminary series talks about metaphorically the sun will no longer show its light and the moon will not show its light. That's metaphorically, but it doesn't necessarily have to be metaphorically either. A nuclear winter blocks out a lot of light.
Yes,
and when you can't see the sky, so
but symbolically, of course, it's about the voice of reason to expose all of these things. A program like this being removed for a time. So that's the moon no longer illuminating humankind. And if the moon ceases to speak out in this regard, the sun's brilliance is absolutely gone because he is the only person speaking on behalf of the greater luminary, who is Dowd, as our savior, who is the actual person that the Twistians modeled their fable Jesus off after. And since he's the only person that does that, the sun and the moon go dark. And of course, when it speaks of the moon being bloody, he is the Adam of Ra. He is the sacrifice for the mortal remnant. So most of it is symbolic of those things during the last days. But most, as you know, most of Yahweh's prophecies are true on multiple levels, and a nuclear winter would go a long way, and we're headed towards that.
Settler violence. We're back to the blame the Jews.
Blame the Jews. The ratio of, first of all, they're not settlers. If you want to call anyone in Judea and Samaria a settler, then you're a moron.
Yeah.
Judea and Samaria are part of Israel, and so the occupiers are the Muslims. So let's start there. The second part of it is that in Judea and Samaria, the ratio, because I've studied it, I've decided, say something, an idiot makes a claim like this, I want to know what the answer is. The ratio of terrorist attacks between the Jews against the Muslims versus the Muslims against the Jews are 60-1. In Judea and Samaria, it's 60-1. There are 60 terrorist attacks by slimy Muslim jihadists for every one that is a response by the Israeli civilians. And most of the time that there is, and I just look at a person like this and I just want to punch him in the nose. I mean, they just disgust me. So, here is Novik. You can go to hell. You are a Nimrod. Let's just
Nimrod. I was just going to say, is this name really?
What an absolute Nimrod you are. Mm-hmm. The reason that the Israelis launch strikes against the Pakistanians and the Muslims is because they're tired of being terrorized. Mm-hmm. 60 attacks to 1 attacks. I don't know how you'd find a people with greater restraint. Now, Is it stupid? Yes. Are the ones that do it morons? Absolutely. Should they be doing it? No. This is not the way that you deal with a problem like this. You need to learn to wield words wisely. Expose and condemn the religion. Don't pretend that your problem is a different race in Arabs. You're just being insane the way they go about doing it. And you see pictures of them, and they are idiots. The Israelis who are engaged in this, and they're mostly young idiots. It doesn't speak well of the future, and they're right wing politically, and that's not good either. So it is a mess, and sadly, Jews are so hostile to their own interests that the overwhelming preponderance of the so-called settler attacks are actually set up by Jews. Jews with cameras, with crews, who are embedded with the Muslims, will taunt the Jews into reprisal and be there with the cameras, filming not the taunt, but the reprisal. Right. And it goes on and on and on. It's literally every day. This is what they do. And so it's Jews being destructive to their own kind. So it is well, I will agree it's a mess. Well, I will agree it shouldn't be done. Well, I agree it's Jews trashing Jews. The fact doesn't change that in the West Bank, it's not Israeli terror that begets Palestinian terror, Nimrod. There are no Palestinians, and the ratio is 60-1. So just sit down and shut up. Take off the damn tie and the suit and pretending to be smart. You're not. Oh my!
This was the rose. It's really nice. It's really nice.
How many times did Trump say, China is really a beautiful country? And
Beautiful,
every place he was, it was just hideously ugly. I mean, they were in a parking lot. They were, standing in this big square with concrete everywhere. He was not taken to any place where you say, yeah, that really is pretty. And, he's not seen China. I've seen lots of China. And China is enormous, and there's places in China that are beautiful and places that are really hideously ugly. I would say Tiananmen Square is hideously ugly. It is a very violent history that transpired there, and the communist government is exceedingly repressive. So that's bad. But he hasn't seen anything that's pretty. He's just a nincompoop, and he's so covetous of being liked and respected. He's just every move, every word is like Satan. I've got no substance. I just need to be liked. I need to be loved. I need to be worshiped. And that's all there is to it. So they take strolls through arches. Who knows?
Part of me wants to go search through Chinese proverbs or something. There has got to be something behind these rose seeds that Trump was gifted. Like, give a fool a seed and he'll whatever. There's got to be a Chinese proverb. There is something behind. There has to be. I just know because of all the things to give Trump. Unless it came in a gilded seed packet. You know what I mean? To give the man rose seeds, it's just there's a dig there somewhere where I'm just missing it. So
but here you've got a man that's cradling a pair of jokers, and he's up against a man that's got 4 kings. At that point, you can't bluff. You aren't going to go all in, and you're all dead. I mean, that's what he's. It's time to fold him, pal. You got a pair of jokers, and he's got 4 kings.
Time exists on a photon of light.
Oh yeah, they were. I listened to the beginning of this, and they were talking about that there is no past, there is no present, there is no future. Everything is eternal, and no, there is a past, there is a present, there is a future. Time flows. It's just that from the perspective of energy. If you were on a photon of light, for example, if we were transformed from being physical beings, because in a physical world, like our tangible universe, like us with our souls in bodies here on this planet, this notion that there is no past, present, and future, and that all things are eternal is utter nonsense. The law of thermodynamics means that we decay. Our planet is decaying. And we as a species are decaying. Boy, is that ever obvious. When we grow
Entropy
older,
rules.
our bodies decay. Everything decays. So it is not eternal. When you die, you are really dead. And your body decays into worm rot. And just be honest about it. That is the truth. And it's only from the perspective of a photon of light at light speed, which is the only light does not accelerate. That's one of the things that's interesting. Light does not accelerate to light speed. So a photon of light
Right.
would leave the sun. It's saying, wow, now that I'm free of this gravity, man, I can gradually,
Right.
stretch my legs, and I'm
Going
going to go up
downhill
there, and I'm
now.
going to reach light speed. No, it exists at light speed. It never slows, never accelerates. Its very existence is defined by its speed. And even speed is distance over time, and the distance is always changing. And on the photon of light, time just simply is. So if you're an energy-based being, if there, as we transition to that, as God describes himself as light, and therefore he is an energy-based being, then there is the opportunity to see all time at any time. But that does not mean that the past, present, and future don't exist. It doesn't mean that everything is eternal. So this is another idiot, the hidden facts. He doesn't have good grasp of his facts, that has misstated Einstein and wants to give people a false impression. What he's saying is, or she is, or it simply is not true.
Right.
And don't count on it being true, because if you do, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, it's a two-dimensional painting, and we are the flashlight. Yeah, that thing just blew my mind. I was like, how thick can you get?
I had read that Netanyahu went into the 60-minute interview, and that he said that when asked how you're going to deal with the enriched uranium in Iran, and he says you just go in and take it. And you read that and you say, well, that's really foolhardy. I mean, I know that Israel has bases in Iraq because America can't figure out how to get out of Iraq. That was a war that should never have been fought and made a bad situation worse, and America can't figure its way out. Now, you want to look for a way out of Iran? Well, look at Iraq. We still haven't figured a way out. Look at Afghanistan. That wasn't exactly a very classy exit, was it? So we're in a really in a bad way. And so what he's saying because now I've heard him, I've seen him make the statement, saying you go in and you take it, and the grimace on his face, the tone, the expression was just bone chilling. And he would literally risk the fate of his country on uranium that would never be turned into a bomb. Now, at this point, you want to deal with Iran? You say, we'll give you reprisals for the damage you've done. We'll recognize that the Strait of Hormuz is in Iranian territorial waters, and you have a right to charge for transit fees. We lost the war, and so we'll remove ourselves from the Arab fiefdoms and those bases. All of that you can solve and end the war. You want to capitulate like that. But the thing that Iran has said that they would do under those circumstances is they will transfer 100% of their 410 kilos, a little over 1,000 pounds of uranium reached up to and past 60% fissile purity. They would transfer it to Russia under Russian supervision, IAEA supervision, where it's all turned into commercial grade back down to 5% fissile purity to run power plants, and discriminated by the Russians under that basis. So you want to get rid of it? Simple, easy. No one has to die. But you would rather,
they lose face. But they all lose face.
Right. But you would rather be a dick. Send men into harm's way in with maybe one chance in 20 of succeeding. You know, the U.S. has already tried to rescue Captain Uranium. How did that turn out? We lost billions of dollars worth of equipment trying to rescue Captain Uranium. So what are you going to do? Israel has far inferior equipment to what the U.S. has in terms of being able to launch that. Far fewer places to launch from. I mean, I know they want to go from the UAE and because they're now providing the UAE with Patriot missiles. Now, imagine what that's going to do in terms of the people of the UAE against their emirs.
Yeah.
Using Jewish
You let Jews
weapons to fight Muslims. Yeah, come on. And so what he hasn't recognized is that while he can't invade Iran, he can send in some troops, go and capture Captain Uranium. You know, well, the U.S. tried and failed, but I'd say 1 chance in 20. I don't think they'll get it out. I think they might get there. I think it's 1 chance in 100 that they actually get it out. And then even what then? The what then? This is what they don't think of. The what then? There has been no indication that Iran is going to finish the nuclear bomb and use it against Israel. No indication. They've been in a position, you've been belly aching about it, but they haven't been in a position to do it for 15 years and haven't done it. So what are you going to gain by taking that which they haven't used?
Right.
And then let's just say that you're successful. What then? Do you think that Iran, with the ability to send 2 million troops into Israel, right through Iraq, which is pro-Iran, and Syria, which is pro-Iran, into Israel, do you think that you can defend against that? You couldn't defend against 4 million Muslims from Gaza and tenny rompers.
Right.
And you're going to defend against 2 million? I mean, what are you thinking, idiot? Are you suicidal?
It absolutely changes nothing in the scope of the, I mean, United States and Israel aren't going to turn around and go home. Oh, we got the uranium. Okay, we're going to call this a win. We're going to back off and turn around and go home. No, they're not. Nothing changes. Iran still has the Strait of Hormuz. Iran can still bomb at will any Arab that they, nation along the coast they want,
Correct.
Cyprus,
Obliterate them.
Europe. Yes.
Right. Obliterate them. Yeah. You gain nothing.
Nothing.
And you risk everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he says it with a grin. The demons are strong in that one. Israel, I'm just telling you that I've been saying this now for years. If you don't replace that man, you're going to be replaced as a country, as a viable nation.
Man, he doesn't look well in that picture either.
No,
he's lost a lot of weight.
Yeah, he's been treated for prostate cancer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's taken its toll. We have our Captain Kirk who has been dealing with that, and he can tell you just how horrible that treatment is. My advice to my good friend Kirk when he was diagnosed with prostate cancer is to say the old adage: very few men die of prostate cancer, but most men die with it.
Right.
Let it go. Don't do anything. I think now if he had to do it all over again, he's deeply loved by Sylvia, his wife, and she is spent her entire career as an emergency room nurse. She knows the whole mentality of this is what you do, and of course you go to the doctors, and this is how they make a living. They say this is what you do. I know I wouldn't have. Now I know that he was already, cancer eats you up, and it wasn't like his choice was, I'm going to go on like normal, or I'm going to try to treat this, because of the fact that it was already robbing him of energy. But boy, the treatment of it has been horrible. And you can see it's taking its toll in Netanyahu. And one of the problems is when when men get to that kind of, and Netanyahu is health-wise in very bad shape. And he's also, from a criminal point of view, he's in very bad shape. And from an international standing point of view, he's in very bad shape. And in terms of his internal politics and within Israel, his Likud party is in very bad shape. And so he is like Trump, and nothing to lose. And when you have maniacal men with nothing to lose, bad things happen. Oh my! So
the housewives making drones.
Yeah, this is was something I was unaware of, but Scott Ritter, we talked about him yesterday, and what I said is that he's gone a little bit zealot on us, and he's not just as deliberate as he should be with evidence and reason. So he's gone a little shrill, but he's still the most knowledgeable character relative to the situation in Iran and in Ukraine. And he is by far no one even close to him in terms of being knowledgeable of what's going on inside of Russia. He's I would say he's the foremost expert on Russia in the West. Now, but he's a Marine, and he's Semper Fi. Yeah, he's charge ahead. Hoorah. He is described something that I'm sure he has received from Russian intelligence, that because the Russians were so effective at bombing the military manufacturing facilities and even the power plants that powered them throughout the Ukraine has come up with an entirely different way of making drones, which are the weapon of choice in a war, and that is that it's housewives, according to him, that are making the components, and that's where they're being assembled, and they're making them by the tens of thousands, and it's disseminated throughout civilian communities. So if you're Russia, what do? Do you let them continue to do it, and they fire them at your people and they kill them? Or do you take out civilian communities? When you have decided that you're going to make mothers of little children your war equipment manufacturers, then what have you done to them?
Put targets on them. Put targets on their water. Put targets on their electricity at the bare minimum.
Yes. And so that was I just think it's a tragic move. My biggest issue with people who are religious and political, well, I've got a lot of issues, but one of my issues is the inability to understand unintended consequences. I'm a pretty deliberate guy, and if I'm going to make a bold statement or do something like to acknowledge that Donald Trump is Rahab, that he is Satan incarnate, that he is going to be, by the time we're through it the next 7 years, the single most destructive and deadly man who has ever lived. You make a statement like that, the unintended consequences are extraordinary. You're going to, for example, destroy your standing on X, which is and on Facebook, because social media has been co-opted by this White House under both bribe and by threat. You're dealing with a criminal enterprise. You either capitulate and you make CBS like Fox, and you turn social media from liberal into MAGA, or we will find a way to turn the government against you. And so that the moment you begin reporting something like that, you have no future on any of those platforms the way they have been twisted. That's a consequence. Now, it can be an unintended consequence, or it can be a known consequence, and you're going to say, I don't care, I'm going to make the call anyway. But there are very few people will think it through and say, all right, like, for example, Europe has taunted Russia to the point where Russia has no choice and has already decided, and it's just a matter of time, that they're going to bomb Europe.
Yeah.
They didn't think it through. When The neocons and the military industrial complex wanted to use Russia or use Ukraine as cannon fodder to kill Russians because they wanted to control Russia just like they want to control Iran, just like they want to control China. They either haven't thought through the unintended consequences and that there is no chance of success because of the unintended consequences, or they just don't care.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think anybody had on their bingo card fiber optic drones in 2005. Okay, nobody had on their bingo card fiber optic, consumer level drones on being what they are, because drones weren't an issue for the U.S. military, anybody, because we can jam them. We have jamming technology, right? We can, and they can't operate with it wherever we don't want them because we can jam the signals. Okay, but as soon as the fiber optics started, game over. It completely changed everything. I mean,
well, and it's not just fiber optics, because the next thing is we thought we could jam the GPS signal.
mhm.
But then the Russians launched their own satellites and have their own, which we can't jam.
Right.
And then the next thing, and if we jam the Russians, the Chinese have their own. Well, then we thought, well, we'll give them Elon Musk's Starlink, and they'll use that. But then the Russians said, no, you won't. We'll shut that down, and they did. But it's not just the fiber optic drones. Now what they do is they'll send out a drone that will begin on friendly territory with using GPS for navigation. But as they get over hostile territory, they switch to ground recognition, geography.
AI,
Because of all of the satellite imagery that has been collected around the world, they switch to optics. So it's not fiber optics with a long, thread. They're not just maneuvering towards the target using ground recognition. They're going back and forth. They're swerving back and forth to avoid being attacked using ground recognition. And unless you're going to change the ground, you're going to move your buildings around, you're going to move your mountains, you're going to move your rivers, you got no way to deal with them either. But, the problem with the whole stupidity of using Ukrainians to go and destroy Russia so that the neocons and the military industrial complex and their bankers and their investors could divvy up Russia and control their raw materials is that Russians don't lie down and surrender. I mean, look what happened in World War II. What was it, 25 million to 30 million Russians that died defending the freedom of Russia from Germany? 25 million. And you think that you're going to send Ukrainians after them and they're going to lay down and say, oh, well, we surrender. The Germans were one thing, but you Ukrainians, no, man, we're done. You think that was, how do you think that was going to work? And let's just say that you push them to the point where you break their economy or anything else. Ever heard of the dead hand? They will destroy you with nuclear bombs. They're not going to go out quietly. You take anyone that has the ability to defend themselves and you push them to the point where that's their only defense, they're going to use it. We just have idiots. Either they're grossly immoral or they're incapable of processing information and thinking things through rationally. This was an absurd choice, just as Iran was. How could Trump be so stupid as to not know that taking out the things on the surface in Iran? I mean, you already had a year ago the example of you bombed the surface and it didn't work. So how are you going to have all these bombing runs of Iran? You're going to unify them around their government, and you aren't going to touch their manufacturing facilities, which are underground, their missile launchers, which are underground, and all their defensive capability, which is underground. And they're going to then lash out and take out all of your bases in the Middle East, which they have done, and they're going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. How could you not see that?
Right.
How could you not
Right.
realize there is nothing to gain here, only to lose? And once you're in, there's no way out.
Yeah. Well, we've said it before. The only thing that they have to gain is for Netanyahu and for Trump. Those are the only two people benefiting out of this situation because they're not in jail. That's
Okay.
Yes.
Elon Musk got Donald Trump elected so that Donald Trump is not in jail and broke today. Look at the cost to the world for him doing that.
right.
And I'm going to tell you, the Iran war and the Ukraine war and all of the mess of this world is not a benefit to either of those men. It isn't.
Ukraine, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ukraine. Yeah.
Iran is not to the benefit of Netanyahu or Trump. I mean, they may have done it to hide from the Epstein files and to keep out of jail, but the fact is, the unintended consequences so
Yes.
overwhelmed what they were trying to avoid that it was a disastrous move, and they destroyed their countries. And to be the person that destroys your country, that comes with a stigma. You're a Mao Zedong, you're a Genghis Khan, you're a Tamerlane, you're a
Hitler.
Nero, you're a Caligula, you're a Hitler. That is the moniker that you wear forever.
Yeah.
Netanyahu and Donald Trump will be considered as demonic amongst the worst people who ever lived. Nothing is worth that.
I'd like to tell them put down the shovel, but they never do. At some point, you just stop digging. But
You stop digging your own grave.
Mm.
But in America, you've got 38% of Americans who are just too stupid, too immoral, too twistian to recognize that they're aiding and abetting the demise of the world.
And Rubio.
Oh, yes. So here is Rubio saying that the U.S. isn't asking for China's help in Iran. Okay, remember how many times Trump said we want China's help with Iran? I mean, they get a lot of oil from Iran. They should be helping.
Sanction them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, come on, help us. And now because the Chinese says no, we're not going to help you with Iran. We're on the other side. And so Rubio's saying, well, no, we're not asking for help, China's help on Iran. I think you said that Trump brought it up. Oh, it's just to clarify our position. Well, what is your position? I don't have a good answer for that one. Could you come back
Today?
with oh, then he was talking about in this Q&A. He said, why are there hostilities now in the Strait of Hormuz? I understand that there's open fighting again in the Strait of Hormuz. That America has engaged attacking Iranian fast boats, and he said, well, because they fired on us. Well, how could they have fired on you unless you provoked them by going into the Strait of Hormuz? Well, we can sail wherever we want to sail. So we're not provocative. It wasn't our fault, but they fired on us. What were we supposed to do? You said, do you think is any country stupid enough that they're not going to respond if fired upon? And the idiot journalist didn't say, then why did you start a war with Iran? Didn't you recognize that they would strike back when you fired on them? And weren't you the one that fired first, sir, Mr. Secretary?
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Don't ask me those questions, because I don't like the answers to those questions. And you must be stupid. You must be dumb. You must be Iranian.
Yeah. You guys are from the low ratings. You have low ratings. You're from the
you have low ratings. You're part of those low rating groups. So this was just amazing. Here's somebody from I think it's CBS News, 60 Minutes.
60 Minutes. Mm-hmm.
60 Minutes was once a very well-respected journalistic platform that did investigative reporting, which was pretty rare. And, then as the mainstream media, with exception of Fox, became toxically Marxist, they became agenda-driven. And I went from saying, oh wow, 60 Minutes Sunday evening, I'm going to watch that, see what they're going to talk about. I haven't watched it in 10 years. So there's an excerpt here from 60 Minutes, and they're talking about targeting Americans with microwave weapons, and that the issue here is that he's blaming the Russians for developing and deploying microwave weapons and then losing control of their society, so that some thugs sold the Russian microwave weapons that are somehow going to be brought into the United States and deployed upon Americans. And yet this nincompoop isn't smart enough to recognize that it was DARPA that invented the microwave weapons. They were not designed initially for the US military. They were designed for crowd control in the United States to suppress any chance of a revolution against the government. And it was the United States that deployed them. And it's only the United States that has used them. And obviously the Russians aren't using them, because if they were, the war in Ukraine would be quite different, because you would fire them at the drone operators. Ukraine is not recruiting soldiers to carry guns anymore. They're only recruiting people to fly drones. And you know, there is a way to stop them. You use the microwave weapon and it burns people up on the inside. No one can stand them. And so it's not being used in Ukraine.
Oh, they've been deployed in the latest ICE riots. Yeah.
But they have been deployed in ICE riots and in America, and were deployed in the kidnap in Venezuela.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And likely deployed when the U.S. went after Captain Uranium.
Right.
So it's the U.S. that has them. It's the U.S. that developed them, and it's the U.S. that has deployed them. Why would you blame the Russians?
It's unbelievable.
It's just reinforcing stupid.
We're not a stupid country for firing on Iran. We're going to double down on that one.
Well, no, we don't need to really double down on it. It was just this is actually the clip where Rubio went off on we're not a stupid country. We're attacked. We attack back. And this host actually had the acumen to say, we are a stupid country. Now, he was not there speaking directly to him. He's just playing a clip, but he says, we are a stupid country. You are a stupid man. And we are the perpetrators of what you are blaming on others.
This one was interesting. Because I don't know what intelligence this speaker had. I mean, like military, knowing what's going on, but talking about the salami slices of putting troops on the ground, going in a little bit and then a little bit more and a little bit more. That was interesting. I was like, do they ever learn?
Mr. Potato Head on the right here. He is actually a very fascinating character. I've listened to several of his interviews. I didn't listen to this one. I just posted it because I thought it was made for an interesting topic. He is a fellow that is all cause and consequence, which means he can have no influence on government or the military. What he does is say, if the U.S. has X number of options as it relates to Iran, and Iran has X number of responses, and so he'll look at what do you think is the most likely action, and what is the most likely response, and what is the counter response to all of that. And he is exceedingly talented in amassing the information necessary to predict the most likely U.S. response and the most likely Iranian counter response, and the resulting situation as it ripples militarily, economically, and geographically through the region. And so he's a professor. Professor Pape, I guess. Robert Pape, is that his name? Anyway, he's a professor. And he has written many papers. He is systematically analyzed what he thought would happen in the Second Iranian War. He laid out his position paper before the February 28th joint attack by U.S. and Israel. He talked about the fact that there was no chance of regime change. We talked about that here too. We said, and we've studied all of the issues necessary for regime change. And I made it very clear that there was a 0% chance we were going to get regime change in Iran based on those circumstances. And, I don't go through them again as to what they were because they were interesting, but he also knew that there was not going to get regime change. And that he also knew the same thing that I've shared here, that if you attack Iran, particularly as the great Satan and the little Satan from their mindset, rather than undermine support for the government, you're going to rally support for the government. That if people were nonplussed about the government, and most of the rioters anyway were encouraged by the Mossad and the CIA anyway, and they were planted with weapons. You know who planted the weapons, by the way, for the peaceful protesters? You know who we used? We gave the weapons to the Kurds and told the Kurds, if you want more weapons, you're going to seed Iranians, including your own, with these weapons and make it take out the police and that sort of thing. We used the Kurds to seed the weapons so that the protests, they were not peaceful. And this idea that Iran killed 40,000 peaceful protesters is just a blatant lie. There were probably 4,000 people that were killed in the protests, and they weren't peaceful. And they were sponsored by the CIA and the Mossad, using the Kurds as intermediaries. So he knew that rather than galvanize a rebellion and regime change, it was going to do exactly the opposite. And it did. That started bombing, and now there were millions of people in the streets, and they were supporting their government.
Yeah.
And so everything that happened, he, as well as I, was able to predict, well, this will be the consequence of that. And the consequence of the destruction of the petrodollar by America abandoning its bases in the Arab fiefdoms, and those Arab fiefdoms having no chance of being able to defend themselves. They have hundreds of billions of dollars of American weapons and no one to use them. And they have a situation where America promised to protect them, and yet America bailed and abandoned those bases. And now the bases are destroyed. And so what's the fate of the petrodollar? And so you didn't think through what's going to happen with the petrodollar when you got $40 trillion in debt. Now, the interesting thing about the debt, and he doesn't really talk about it much, but I think I've just skirted this issue, but the debt isn't the catastrophe in terms of an immediate catastrophe that it appears when you eliminate the reserve currency so that you have no way to fund that debt, because we're really not funding it. We haven't been funding it in a very long time. Our debt has fundamentally changed our currency, so that our currency, the very dollar that the debt is denominated in, is now that debt. The dollar is a debt instrument. It is that debt. And so the way that the debt is dealt with is that the value of those dollars is decimated. And so you just continue to decimate the value of the dollar. At about the time I was born, well, in this life anyway, you could buy a really nice home, new home, in a lovely suburban neighborhood for $4,000 or $5,000. And that same home now costs $500,000-$600,000.
The same home.
Same home, used, deteriorating. A car was $200. Now the average price of the car, which is a lot smaller and much less material in it, and the average price of that car is $60,000.
But it's got Bluetooth. I mean, come on.
I hate Bluetooth. So I read Bluetooth on anything, I just scream because it cuts in and out. You have to go through pairing. If it says Bluetooth on it, I will trash it immediately. If I make a mistake and I buy something that's Bluetooth, it is. If it can't be direct wired or go with the thumbnail connection, like most mouse and keyboards, no. But the fact is, it wasn't inflation that changed those things. Is that the currency became the debt. And so they just continue to destroy the currency. And if you continue to destroy the currency, even if it takes $1,000 to buy a loaf of bread, which is what's coming, it's the same currency you're using. It's just different numbers on it. Just like that house, just like that car, just like everything else. So the debt now is the currency. They're indistinguishable. When you hold up a dollar bill, you're holding up that debt.
Yes, absolutely. They've always been for all debts, private and public. They are debt instruments.
They are debt instruments.
The other thing about that is that we're able to offshore so much of our debt, but when people no longer want it, it comes home and it increases the problem exponentially.
Yeah, the way that we offshored it was through the petrodollar because everybody needed to buy energy, and if you because of the petrodollar, we were able to establish the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency in the world. But to do that, what you have to have is you have to play by rules. You mean that people have to own dollars to buy things in dollars as the reserve currency. So you can't make that a weapon of war, which we did with Iran, which we did with Russia. And the moment that we confiscated the dollar reserves that Russia was using to do commerce, the whole world just woke up and said, now the US dollar is no longer a safe haven. It is a weapon of war. It has been weaponized. This was happened in the Biden administration. Trump would have done the same thing, though. And it's been weaponized. So the dollar can no longer be something we trust. We must put our national reserves in something other than the dollar. It's no longer safe. And then we turned SWIFT, which was that trading mechanism, into a weapon of war, and we isolated countries from it. And then we forced them to develop alternatives, which is now BRICS, and there are others. And when you do that kind of thing, you eliminate the reserve currency status. The reserve currency status is now under 50%, and it's falling rapidly. And so we're no longer able to offshore our debt. There's no entity, whether it's Europe, Japan, or China, that is even maintaining similar levels of debt, much less increasing them as the U.S. national debt rises. So 100% of the illusion of solvency is coming through what we call quantitative easing. And quantitative easing is the concept of creating the illusion of money, but with an interest rate associated with it, but the illusion of money because no one is buying the bonds. And the quantitative easing, it simply undermines the value of the currency. That's all it's doing. And so it is destroying your savings.
It's short term good for the Dow, though, because the stock price continues to go up and up and up, even though there's nothing fundamentally in the country. No, the stock price is not going up. No, the value of the mechanism to value those stocks is decreasing in value. So it takes more of those debt instruments to buy a share because the dollars that are being used to buy the share are becoming progressively less valuable. So it creates the illusion of the stock market going up. No, it's not the stock market going up. It's the value of the dollars in which it is priced going down. Absolutely, yeah.
The value of that car from $250 to $50,000 is not a sign that the value of that car increased. No, it's a sign that the value, the worth of the instrument that you're pricing that car becoming worthless.
Absolutely. Much better stated than I did. That's why you asked the businessman to do it and not the chicken farmer. So
your point was really a good one. I like if it is possible that we can explain the really important lessons economically and militarily, politically, religiously, in ways that I think a thoughtful person can process and understand and appreciate. I think we have done a real service. And this illusion that your country is solvent is something that people need to know, that you're holding up that dollar or your credit card, that all it is now is a belief system. If you believe in it, and enough people believe in it, that it worked. But it doesn't take much to cause that one ripple where no one believes in it anymore. And the moment that begins, it's unstoppable, and it will it all cascades in craters, and then people do really crazy things and anarchy. And there is no hedge against anarchy. And are you going to have a gun, and are you going to shoot people that are trying to rob you because they're hungry? Are you going to do that? You're going to go there. Because you're not going to go there, and I won't go there, then you're going to be robbed. There's nothing you can do.
Well, yes, I agree with you completely. The first 30 that show up get fed and get armed, and they are the ones that turn the guns on the next 120 that show up. Otherwise,
That's
you
correct.
are,
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's really nothing.
It's not a nice option, but
no. And the more you're prepared, the more you become a target, and you have and you're victimized. It's why God is taking His family out of this world, and it's why when we get repositioned, we're repositioned in an entirely different scenario where we are energy based, and therefore we're impervious to attack. When you're coming back from Shamaim, it doesn't really matter how much food you have in your pantry. I can assure you of that.
Right.
You just have an entirely different look on things here. When I agreed to Yahweh's request to go after Islam and to write Prophet of Doom and tea with terrorists, and to explain that Muhammad wasn't a prophet and Allah's not a god, and that Islam is a terrorist manifesto, and I received tens of thousands of death threats. I knew who I was working with and for, and I knew that it didn't matter, that I would never have to duck, that I would never have to fire a gun in protection of my family. I knew it would never matter, and it never has. 25 years later, here I am, doing programs like this, and it doesn't matter. There is nothing that anybody who is human is going, or even demonic, is going to be able to do that will preclude carrying out this job. And it's not because I'm great or anything. It's because there are just not enough people who were willing to listen and do the job. So the very fact that I accepted it put me in this position.
I think early on, I used to joke, I don't need an AK or a Glock because I have a Malak. So
yeah, I don't need an AK or a Glock because I have a Malak. When I came to this island, first of all, when I got my divorce from my ex, when I had my Virginia farm, because we had such enormous amount of space and rolling hills and trees, and I actually found that shooting automatic weapons and shotguns and that's things, particularly at clay targets or at tin cans or at fruit or something like that, fruit goes sour, and you can take a target pistol and shoot an orange. I mean, it's kind of fun. So I had all sorts of targets and places to shoot, and it was do it once every 2 or 3 months, and it was fun. And I had all sorts of automatic weapons because it was in Virginia. You could do that sort of thing. When I left, I took no weapons with me, but ultimately I bought from my ex 3 of my guns because I had done a complete restoration on a 80-foot boat. And I knew that my goal was to sail that boat through the Caribbean. And I knew that on a boat like that, you'd better have something to say, I'm not interested in pirates today. Thank you very much. I'm not interested in what you're offering. And so you'd better have something. And so I had 3 guns that I took with me on that trip. And once I got here, I found out that owning a gun here, if it's not registered here, was an offense that was 10 years mandatory prison without per weapon, and then another 10 years if you had ammunition for them. That didn't sound very appealing to me. So I looked into the process of registering them, and I asked the local police on the street, who were very friendly. I said, "So I understand this is the policy here. What can you tell me about it?" They said, "Well, don't do it, because if you do it, there are so many corrupt people in that department. They will give your address to sell your address to somebody who will come steal the guns, and so now you'll have a gun registered to you being used to perpetrate crimes, and it's just not worth doing. Don't do it." So I gave the guns away, and so I'm announcing that if you have intent to harm me, I am unarmed, but I am highly malaked.
Highly malaked, right?
I am highly malaked.
I have taken so many people that were, anti-gun, that had never handled a firearm in their life, that had out of the city, and brought them, and the smile is always the evil AR-15. I put a 30-round clip in that sucker. I have them point it down range, and I said, "You don't have to just pull the trigger." And the smile on their faces after that happens, that first 2 rounds, I know now pop 2 or 3 fast. The smile on their faces is just always the same. They just can't believe it.
Particularly if you're shooting at targets that do something. And I've just never been, just at but if you're shooting at tin cans on a log and you can knock them all off the log. I mean, that stuff in the old Wild West movies, they put an old bottle. I don't ever use bottles because I didn't want to deal with the glass. But nonetheless, you put a tin can on a stump and shoot the tin can. It's fun to see the tin can go up in the air. Listen, I have nothing against guns. In fact, I recognize I grew up in for many years of my life in Jefferson country, and just downhill from Thomas Jefferson's Monticello. And I understood Jefferson hated an established military. Jefferson said there's 2 things or 3 things from Jefferson's point of view that would be a death blow to a country: an established military. So when you have a parade and you say, we're here, founding fathers, we're going to march by the Jefferson Memorial, he thought that a standing military would be exceedingly destructive to a country, that they would rob that country of its freedoms. The second was a national bank. He said a national bank will bleed the country dry. And the third is that if religion and politics are brought together so that the politics echoes any one religion. And he was particularly hostile towards Pauline Christianity. So those were his 3 negatives. And to overcome them, he had different strategies for each. But as it relates to the established military, what he recognized is, with these massive oceans that we had on both sides of us, that if Americans, and he, of course, at his side was only one side, because the other side was just wasteland, a wilderness, not wasteland, but wilderness. So what he recognized is that if Americans bore arms, and the Second Amendment isn't owning hunting rifles, it's weapons that are designed to be wielded by a militia. They're weapons of war. That if the average citizen had weapons of war, their government could not oppress them, and no foreign country could invade them. It was a double win. Plus, you would never have the military-industrial complex that would be robbing the people blind. So it was a triple win. But we lost sight of what the reason was for that. But an unarmed populace, as it's presented in the Second Amendment, with the weapons being automatic weapons, bazookas, and shoulder-fired missiles. I mean, the real McCoy. Now, they didn't have all that then, but the best firearms that a person could own was of militia war caliber, is what Jefferson viewed was a vastly superior choice in terms of not being able to impose the dictatorial tyranny of a centralized communal state on people. So they would have the ability to have a revolution every 100 years or so. And Jefferson knew that if you didn't have a revolution every 100 to 200 years, you weren't going to have a country worth living in. And the only way to do that is to have no established military and to have the people armed. And we lost track of that. So I'm not anti-gun. I see the value of guns. I've never shot and killed anybody with a gun. I've had guns pulled on me many times in my life. I've had guns put with rounds chained right between my eyes.
With terrorists.
You know,
I've with terrorists
many times I've had guns at my temple and my head, pointed at my heart. And I'm an interesting character under fire. I don't flinch. I don't back down. I don't show any fear. My heart rate does not go up. My eyes do not dilate. And I don't back down. I know the power of words. I know the power of confidence and what it does when people threaten you. And so every time that has happened, and it's been many times in my life, I have prevailed.
I just
the
wish
most
people
powerful
would
weapons in
stop
the
pointing
world.
guns at me.
Yeah, words wielded wisely are the most important weapons in the world. Most powerful weapons.
Well, are you going to do a Luminaries episode today, or are we just going to run right into the family show, you think?
I think we're going to go. We've done with this about an hour and 44. Is that where we are here on this?
Yep.
No, I think we're going to go to a family show. I'm really trying to get what is, I think, just a marvelous series of which is currently 3 books on coming home, and I'd like to get them into 2 books. I'll see if I can do that. I'd really like to spend the time working on it. I've just finished the 31st Mashal and rewriting it. Both translations and commentary. And now I'm going to go through the aftermath of that. But I've got a lot of material from the Psalms and from the prophets and from the Torah that surrounds all of this. I've shared some of it in previous programs. I wrote it for these programs. Of course, the Luminary series is derived from the 3rd of those coming home books. And you know, I enjoyed that series, and I'm sure we'll deal with it again on Monday. But I think that right now, our family hour tonight will be Luminaries. That'll be the basis of it. We'll play a new song, and we'll do the Luminary. Tell you what, you can't. I don't think we'll ever have an episode that we play a song that will have the effect on me as the Ruth song did. Because that's my story. That's my wife's story. That's the story of our kinsman redeemer. That's the most wonderful episode in our lives, and the most meaningful. True. So, you know, that one was pretty hard to watch and not tear up. And for an old guy that's been through the wars, it's not much that moves me like that. But that one's pretty tough. I don't know.
Well, to tease you a little bit.
Yeah.
To tease you a little bit, she has written some that are just from her to you that we're working on. So,
oh my,
she has some. So don't say that. There's always room to get more emotional.
Yeah, we really have an interesting relationship. I mean, she wrote that one. I'm Queen of the Castle, and you realize what that all says, and then you read 2 years, 3 years after that, and then you read the 31st Mashal, and you say, well, she was a prophet. I mean, she presented herself exactly as that story. And, you know, I just went back through it again, and it is so riveting, so irrefutable, and so powerful that Yahweh does have a group of souls that he has deployed and redeploys that he trusts, and they go in when the job is the most difficult, and they do have support and they work together. But in particular, his ultimate fixers are a husband and wife. Get to know them as Boaz and Ruth, and when they're deployed, it's serious. It's serious. There's a serious problem, and they're going to see it through, and they consistently get her done. And I know a big part of that is, in the 31st Mashal, the conclusion is that woman who wrote these songs, it's just flat out stated, she's the greatest of them all. And that's as much as you can say. She is Ashar, blessed and beneficial. She is the Amah, the most productive of mothers. And the one that she is mothering is Dowd. She restored and redeemed the kinsman redeemer so that the kinsman redeemer could redeem the rest of us.
It is an interesting dichotomy because they are big shoes to fill, yet they are your shoes. So you're already filling them, right?
She does not work alone. And there's two places actually in our relationship where she took the lead. She absolutely is the one that went after Boaz. And she played Boaz perfectly. She is. It's just amazing when you read the Boaz story. She is the pursuer in the Boaz story, and she's the one who's claiming, "I am your Amah, and I will deliver the kinsman redeemer to you," which means that we're actually going to be the mom and dad of Dowd as he is positioned to fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim. Which, if anybody wants to say because of what the world has turned to, blessed be Mary and all that kind of horseshit, the fact is that's a really, really, really tough job, because you just don't pat him on the behind and say, "Okay, kid, it's time to get crucified." No, you're there with him. You're okay, kid, it's time to carry the guilt into Sheol. No, you're there with him. That was a really tough job. And then going in when Dowd was a drunkard and a slackert and full of himself and angry at God, and saying, "No, pal, it's time to wake up. Let me tell you who you really are and who we are and what we're going to do." And, that was a really tough job. The whole Noach situation, that was a really, really tough job over a lot of years. When it gets really, really dire, that's when he sends in this team, and we haven't failed him yet. I don't see any chance that we've got 7 years left that we're going to fail him now, nor during the 1,000 years that comes after. But God hedges his bets. It's not just that he sends in the team that has performed in the past and makes them a couple, husband and wife. But he empowers them with his spirit, and he shores them up with family, with the team of people. There are two men sitting on this couch to my right that making this show work today. And you are not just the host of the show, you're a huge part of why the show works as it does. It keeps the family together. My wife, Ruth, who we call Leah, is 20 feet behind on the other side of this bookcase. We even put Wookiee to work. I mean, you can't even be a dog in this house.
Everybody contributes.
Even Asher now at the conclusion of the song on managing the controls. Everybody works, and in this environment. So you want to be a part of it. You're gonna be put to work. We have people now that are all over the chat at yada.com saying, "Oh, what am I going to do? I don't know if I'm measuring up." And I just said, stop belly aching, stop worrying, stop pretending that you're worried about you're not going to make it. You may not. So what? You have all sorts of opportunities to contribute, and you can absolutely punch your own ticket if you contribute to the level where where God says, I can trust you. I can trust to empower you. So you can absolutely be certain that you punched your ticket based upon your attitude and your devotion. No question asked. So, I mean, I'm quite certain that you're not worried. You're never standing up like, boy, I hope that God's happy with what I'm doing. I mean, I haven't thought like that in decades.
Right.
You know,
right.
not even for a nanosecond.
Yeah. The
And
pressure's
so
off for sure.
Right. So if you are contributing, you know it, and he knows it, and you're really good together. And so if you're worried, you probably should be worried, right? And then, you know, what I'm telling people is, it's not my job to get you doing something. I can say, hey, we got lots of opportunity. I've created the environment. We have created the environment for you to engage. Choose. Engage. Not our job to hold your hand. You know, if you want to engage, then do it. But stop wringing your hands and saying, "Woe is me, I don't know." God, just get off the pot and start doing something. Really?
Right. Just
Not that
get
hard.
started.
Not that hard. And let's say that because you either don't have the drive, and it's drive and discipline. You know, I'm not expecting that everybody's going to be like us. We get up before the sun, and we do this until well after the sun has gone to bed at night, and we do it 7 days a week. And I'm not saying that everybody has to be like that. You know, God's not expecting everybody to be like that. He's not empowering everybody to be like that. I don't even think He wants everybody to be like that. But everybody can make a contribution. There is nobody who is working 18 hours a day, where their day is filled with 18 hours of labor 7 days a week to put food on the table. There's nobody in that position.
Yeah.
And if you were in that position, you need to lighten up and do something else, because what you're doing isn't working.
There is an interesting guy, Stephen Molyneux. Okay, he was a philosophy influencer kind of guy from a long time. I think he still has a show, but he started his shows with the camera, with his phone in the corner of his car as he was driving home. And that's how he started doing his philosophy show and talking about it, was because he lived in Vancouver and had an hour commute. And so I'm sitting in the car in traffic for an hour. Why not use this time to do my show, say some thoughts,
Right. And smartphones, everybody's got them. You can do that kind of thing. Now, I'm telling you here, you want to be on yada.com, you're going to have something that we point to. You're going to need to be more thoughtful than that. They're going to have content that is much better presented and organized and supported than that. Otherwise, it's not going to cut it. And let's just say that you're among those who miss the Shabuw'ah harvest. So what? That means rather than, and Matt's the one that I like his attitude on this. He says, first of all, Matt's very engaged, but Matt says, I would look at it as an opportunity. Now I'm in the field. I can make a contribution. I know what's true. I've got the conviction. I have the means. I've been engaged, so I know what needs to be done. I know how to do it. Now I have this great opportunity, and I'm going to look at it as I have this great opportunity. And by doing that, I'm going to assure that the next time there's a harvest, I'm there. I'm first in line. But I'm not doing it so I'm first in line. I'm doing it because I can make a contribution. I know I can please our God, and I can make a difference in people's lives. And you're doing it for that reason. And I think that's beautiful. And that's what's exactly the approach you want to take. And be part of the next one, but not for the purpose of you being part of the next one, but because of what you can contribute so that there are others that are part of the next one. God has done a really interesting job of clustering the fulfillment of the last four Moedim in the plural together, so that we've got Shabuw'ah that's going to be 6 to 7 fulfilled in stages, likely, but 6 to 7 years before the Teruah harvest. And then, people are saying, I can't believe you'd have a harvest, less than 24 hours before you'd have the performance of the Adamah Parah and the sacrifice. Well, why? Because the people who are on Teruah are going to Shamaim and going to come back, but They're empowered. They're already covenant. All the people that are part of the Shabuw'ah harvest are mortals that are going into the garden on Sukkah,
Mhm.
and an entirely different situation.
Mhm.
And they're back to back. So if you were to miss Shabuw'ah and you're to miss Teruah, well, shame on you for missing both of them based upon what you know. It should never happen. But let's just say you do, and you're too lethargic to make a difference, or there's something about you that God says, I'm not really ready to trust you yet. Then your attitude should be such that you're part of the people that are invited into the mortal remnant, right?
Yeah.
Be there. And then
Needs
you
an
got
ass.
1,000 years. They get 1,000 years to get your act together. Can't get your act together over 1,000 years because you couldn't get it together in the years prior to the Shabuw'ah harvest, and you couldn't get it together in the 7 years to the Teruah gleaning. Then you don't belong.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I
sorry.
got nothing for you.
I got nothing for you at that point.
Yeah.
But just think it through, and the single most important thing you can do is get out of your own head and figure out what you can do to make a contribution to somebody else, particularly to God and to his people, to his family. So
Absolutely.
good place to end. We'll have family hour here, and what is it now? It's 1 o'clock. So 5 hours from now, we'll have family hour. Looking forward to being part of that with you. And I understand we have a special guest, and Mariah and her husband are making our first appearance. And of course, what our hope is that Mariah and her husband are such that they're comfortable enough doing this, and I understand they do communicate very well and work well together, but that they should be hosting their own show. And I know they work, so why not host it on a Shabbat? So the two of them can host their own show. Pick Thinking Torah, Loving Torah, the Covenant Family, or a Yada Yada book club, or any other kinds of thing that they would like to do. But they can have their own co-hosts and pick a subject and do this on the weekend. We hope that's how it materializes. We'll see. Thank you. I just make certain, though, if you wouldn't mind, just as a program note, if we take the family hour, which is now 10 people, between Perry and Rich, who are also here, and Leah, who comes in and goes, it's 10 people.
Yes.
That is a lot to host, because you at that point you can't focus on the message. You have to focus on making sure that everybody contributes. And we have
Right.
a lot of
Being a good host, right?
We have a lot of thoughtful introverts in that group, and they don't all contribute unless you actually reach out to them and say, "What do you think about this?" And you got 10, and that's really it's an unwieldy position to be in. And if don't think we're not going to 12. I really, really like Mariah. I mean, I really, really respect her. I was one of and we love to have more vocal women be part of our program. And I have known for some time that she deeply loves her husband, and that her husband recently has become covenant, and that has really blossomed into a wonderful thing. And I'm delighted to be able to share that. So I'm positive all the way to the point of saying, we're just not going to do an ongoing family hour with 12 people. That just...
No, I concur. I agree absolutely. We're going to figure out a rotation schedule.
Yes.
Tonight, you probably will not see my face, but I will be definitely in backstage, so you can hear me if you need to.
Yeah, that's not a good idea. See, that's really not a good idea. I like the rotation schedule. I really do. Particularly if the contributors to Family Hour also rotate into their own programs. I mean, Dr. Jeff has been with us long enough to have his own program. I know Kirk is not feeling well, and I know Sylvia has the migraines she's has, but you get out of yourself and focus on what they can contribute. They are so good together. They could have their own program as well. And I think Mike and JB are so similar in terms of their intellect and their understanding of this material and how long they have studied this material. The two of them doing a Thinking Torah series on, understanding how the moods and the conjugations play out and help us understand a passage and where the parallel passages are. Those guys would be great together. And if we have voices beyond mine where they star in a presentation like that, it's great for everybody, and they'll draw an audience to it. So, that's what I'm hoping, is that we don't just rotate the people that are part of that family hour, but that they all take the responsibility, because they're capable of it, of hosting their own shows, even if the hosting is collaborative. Like Mike and JB, I just think would be sensational together. But we have a chemistry together and a comfort level of working together such that you are not somebody that I would want to rotate off of any show. Like, we can do. I love Roger and Matt for different reasons, and boy, did I ever learn a lot about the substance of Noah. And I thought Noah was great, and I love the rotating folks in the vlog on the blog. But it's probably not a good idea that you rotate off of it. I'm sorry, just in the background. Sure. I don't think that's a good idea. I think that sometimes people just mesh, and I think that the comfort level that we have working together, and you kind of got a snarky attitude, you keen intellect, but also a snarky attitude, and so that kind of works well. Your congenial people rally around you. They're very comfortable with you, which I'm not the kind of person people get comfortable with, and so I think that plays off well. And I think the fact that we're both snarky, but you might be even snarkier than I am, I think plays really well. And you're not competing for attention. You're here in a support role, and do it so brilliantly. My preferences be that you not rotate off, but it's free will and all.
We'll figure it out. Don't worry.
Yeah, figure it out. Okay. Well, anyway, I think that's a positive discussion. So that, and one of the things you say, well, why are you discussing this openly on the program? And the answer is because we don't have any secrets.
Why not?
There is nothing we're going to say that's any different in an open venue like this versus private. This is who we are. This is what we know. This is what we think, and it does not change. And so
this is how the sausage is made. So
this is how the Covenant family works, baby.
We show up and we go live. So
we do. We do. We do, and we talk openly about everything. And we just don't have any secrets. God doesn't have any secrets. We don't have any secrets. Even the translations format that we've gone to, it's all the cards laid face up on the table. Yeah. We're not trying to fool anybody. We're trying to inform, and we're doing the best we can in that regard, so that everybody has the opportunity to learn and to verify, so that you end up, if you're checking through the translations and the conclusions derived from the translations, the person that you're verifying happens to, there's the Wookiee cam here. You can see a Wookiee says, yeah, I trust you, Dad. I do. If you rub my stomach, though, I'll really trust you a lot more. The one that you come to trust when you validate all the translations and the such is Yahweh.
Yeah, he's laid it all out.
He has. All there. It's all there. So anyway, thank you, Kevin. Perry did a great job. Thank you for driving. Coach Rich over there. Thank you for being the student. One of the reasons we're doing this is that Rich is accompanying Leah to Florida because Rich has some challenges with an uncooperative body that is yapping at him. And Leah is convinced that if he goes to the same high-tech chiropractor that's got the I'm going to measure everything and have one thump only, Mr. Razuli. And that thump is the right place at the right time and just done just the right way on C1. You know, that's a pretty tough thing. A chiropractor can't deal with C1. But it's a C1, one ping only, Mr. Mazzulli. She's convinced that it's going to make a difference because it does for her. And so they're going to go see the electronic computerized thumper chiropractor in Florida and then head on back. So we're going to have Rich gone for a few days. And so Perry is going to be the master of the cables while we're gone. I can't make him king of the cables, so he'll be we'll have him be captain of the cables while we're gone. So glad you're getting the experience. But thank you all. We'll look forward to being with you this evening, 5 hours from now. Good day.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. That was Fetch. Gotta run now. Catch y'all on our next podcast.